Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Bolt Crew podcast. Dave Pele and Mario Heron with you today as Josh is on his honeymoon. He's in Croatia and then he's headed to Italy and gonna basically 2 weeks away from us. So either way, Chargers still going on. So we're talking Charger football. So appreciate everyone that's going to join us on this Monday, getting a chance to talk Chargers and what's going on with you guys and what you guys think is what's happening with this team and moving forward. I don't know about you, Mario. I'm looking at a bunch of different things with the Chargers, and they have like different rankings out, about which teams have gotten better and which teams have gotten worse through free agency and through the draft. And ESPN had one today that the Chargers have stayed the same. The Chargers haven't gotten worse and haven't gotten better, but they've stayed the same on their top 32 ranking. When you look at where the roster is right now, like, is this a better team in your mind than what they were when the season ended?
I think it is. I think they made enough improvements on the O-line and in their backfield that they really wanted to run home about last offseason, I should say. That's a vast improvement, right? The Hampton and Najee Harris backfield is light years ahead than the J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards backfield that we had. So that's where I go, massive improvement. The area still I'm concerned about is the pass rushing, our up front. I'm still very worried about that. Our passing game options, yes, we added Mike Williams, but how big, will he be next season? How much improved? How good and how active will Trey Harris be in this offense? Can Lambert be huge in this offense? There's a lot of questions I still think in our passing game. But overall, Dave, I mean, I would say if, you did 11 versus 11, the 2025 Chargers would probably whoop on the 2024 ones.
I'm with you. I think number one is you have a coaching staff that has created a culture, right? Guys understand what to expect. I think a lot of guys, obviously, when you get a new boss, you're not exactly sure of what's going to happen. But at the same time, they all understand what Jim Harbaugh wants. People understand the system. You get a new defensive coordinator, a new offensive coordinator a year ago. Now people who are in the system understand how it works, understands what's expected. And yeah, the schedule might have been easier last year, but at the same time, I think they've filled up some holes where we were really concerned. I think the running game is already better. I think that obviously the offensive line is a little bit better. The tight end is better. The wide receivers are better. Moving forward, I think this team has made improvements. I was kind of surprised. I mean, these rankings are obviously kind of ridiculous opinions, right? We have to play the schedule out for a reason. But to me, I was kind of surprised that they said they just stayed straight. ESPN said the Chargers aren't better or any worse than they were before. They just kind of stayed exactly where they were. So I don't know, man. It's kind of interesting.
So I'm looking at it, and the teams that they are ahead of, I just find fascinating. Like they put them ahead of Tampa Bay, which I get. Tampa Bay just lost another offensive coordinator, but that's still a pretty solid football team. They put us ahead of the Texans, even though the Texans beat us in the playoffs, and they lost the key piece on the O line, but they added C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And I think maybe I'm going to be really wrong about this, but we'll see. I think the Niners being at 15 in that list is the most disrespectful ranking of that whole thing. I really think the Niners are going to come back with some vengeance, man.
Yeah, the Niners, as we spoke about, when the season ended, they had, we don't want to say as organization had bad luck, but they had, not only injuries, including their best player who was injured right from the beginning, and Christian McCaffrey, but you had two players on the team whose children died during the season. You had your number number one, number two draft pick, number one, right? It was a personal number one who was shot.
Oh yeah, who was shot. Literally, you can't have worse luck than the Niners. Like they all should have bought in a lottery ticket after that season and go, it's got to turn around.
I mean, I'm not a Niners fan at all, but at the same time, that's one where and the stuff that happened to that Niners roster was stuff you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. I mean, it's just sort of terrible things that happened during the season. The Niners, yet at the time when the season began a year ago, everyone said it was the most loaded roster in the NFL. Like it's going to be the Eagles and the Niners are going to have a cakewalk to the NFC Championship game. Next thing you know, the Niners are picking 11 in the draft. And so, yeah, the Niners, you might want to look at your odds because I know you like to play, but you might want to see what is the win total for the Niners to go, hey, there's an opportunity here to fix this thing in a hurry. Niners got rid of a lot of guys. They have obviously a situation with Brock Purdy where he's supposed to be signed, and is he going to hold out for money? George Kittle made the comment the other day, the best thing I like about this Niner team, there's nobody holding out for new contracts. Well, dude, your quarterback, the guy that's going to throw you the ball, like, dude, you got paid. The one thing about pro sports is you never talk about people's money. And even when there are holdouts and guys miss time, guys in that locker room always have your back. That's always what it's known for, no matter what. No matter what you think privately, you never say publicly, hey, you know what? He needs to come in. He owes us. And when Kittle makes that comment, when he knows Purdy hasn't been paid, is ridiculous. Because a week ago we're doing the show, and one of the questions was, did the Niners overpay for Kittle, who's a longtime veteran in this league, to give him that much money? What were the options for the Niners? But Purdy, hey, time to get paid, and you keep your mouth shut if you're one of his teammates. So it's kind of interesting to see which way that went. By the way, when we talk about the rankings, people are like, well, where are they ranked? The Chargers are ranked number 11. Okay, in case you're wondering, according to ESPN, they're ranked number 11. There's one team in the AFC West that the Chargers are behind, and that's not a surprise. It's the Chiefs. The Chiefs right now are the number 1 ranked team. Okay, so I'm just going to give the teams leading up. Chiefs are 1, Eagles 2, Bills 3, Lions 4, Ravens 5, Commanders are 6. Amazing where the Commanders have gone in a year. Rams are 7, up 1 spot. The Rams were 8. They moved up 1 spot. Packers are now number 8. They moved up 1 spot. Minnesota has moved up 1 spot, which completely surprises me. To me, Minnesota with an unproven quarterback to be number 9 doesn't make any sense at all on this list. Bengals are number 10, and the Chargers are number 11. Now, the Bengals being number 10 is kind of bizarre because the Bengals, remember, didn't make the playoffs last year. They were one of the more disappointing teams in the league, yet the Bengals are number 10, Chargers are number 11. In case you're wondering, by the way, where the Broncos and Raiders are, the Broncos are number 14. Okay, so the Broncos inside the division, 32 teams in the league. You have 3 of the teams in the AFC West are in the top 14. All right, so we just like we said before, this is a tough division, and going all the way down to see where the Raiders are. I'm scrolling. The Raiders are number 26. So overall, extremely tough division, just like we have said. There's a reason why we like the AFC West so much. It's a shame that obviously we couldn't be in an easier division, but what do they say? Iron sharpens iron. And by the time the postseason begins, hopefully you're ready to go, right? At the same time, you hope you don't suffer major injuries throughout the year. By the way, we will get to your comments as well throughout the show, but overall ranking wise, again, it's early. I mean, it's only May 6th as we sit there and we talk about the way things are playing out. But I think with enough guys there overall with Jim Harbaugh and his coaches, that guys who have been there, guys that understand the culture, the new guys that will come in want to be part of the culture. There's a reason why those guys were drafted, that they'll fit right in, and the Chargers will be off and running quicker than they were a year ago.
I look at this list and I think I was thinking in my head, like, what's too high, what's too low. The Washington Commanders, to me, I know they added a lot. Like, they added Tunsil. They drafted Josh Connolly in the first round. They get Deebo Samuel. I just have a feeling, Dave, they come back down to earth a little bit. I'm not saying like they miss the playoffs and have like this, terrible trajectory every year like we did in Staley's last year. But I think maybe they're getting overhyped just a little bit. There's a sophomore slump I think that is incoming for Jaden Daniels. We talk betting space. I wouldn't trust him to take home MVP next year. I wouldn't trust them to win that division. I just think, people are going to come home on him a little too hard. There's been a lot of love to the Los Angeles Rams. I'm talking a lot of love. The more the offseason kind of keeps turning around, the more I keep hearing people really getting back behind Los Angeles and thinking they can be a serious team in the NFC, that they can win the Super Bowl. And yeah, and I completely get what they're saying.
Okay, you're going the other way. Okay.
No, I get what they're saying, but always the thought in my head is if everyone's talking about it, it's not the time to like go in on them. You know what I mean? Like, it's always a team that's, like last year, people were talking about the Commanders, but people weren't talking about the Commanders in the way they ended. And that's what happened. The Texans 2 years before that, people, thought CJ Stroud could be something good, even though he failed some stupid tests. That still no one really knows what it is. It's kind of like the ACT. I truly have no freaking idea what's in the ACT or like what in the hell it's about. But somehow, like, if you do good or do bad, you're going to get into college. And it's like, my buddy was hammered and he cheated off of it and he got a great score and that's how he got into college. So, like, are we really going to rate how smart you are off that test? But anyways, I digress.
I'm dying to know how your buddy cheated on the ACT. Always amazed that
Dude,
people say they cheat on the SAT or ECT.
so he showed up. This is a kid, by the way. I love him. He's one of my best friends. Gonna be an usher with him at a wedding, and I
Nice.
was like really bold to put me and this kid together
Oh
at the
boy.
front door, saying, "How the hell are you? Welcome to." I almost said the last name. Welcome to the Johnsons, wedding. But no, he got hammered the night before. We were at a party, and he goes, "I got the ACT tomorrow," and I was like, "Buddy, I don't know if you've seen your GPA, but you should probably be studying up, getting like a good night's rest for it." He goes, "No, I'm just gonna sit next to the smartest kid in there." And he walked in, sat next to the smartest kid. And the people that, by the way, that are watching you on those tests, they're like fresh out of college stoners. So they're just off, they're not paying attention what's going on. And so he just cheated the whole time. I love when they tell you that, by the way. It's my favorite thing, Dave, when like there's people that watch you take the test. It's like, dude, Becky has been on her phone hitting a vape for 40 minutes. She doesn't know what freaking chapter we're on. She's read the same thing from section 1 through section 6. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I like you just call it a random person Becky. There's a
Yeah.
girl next to me today when I was driving, by the way. She was driving I don't know, it was like a Honda CRV, and it looked like it was about 18 years old. And she's vaping right next to me as we're driving down the road, just looking at me and vaping. And that left turn signal just was on for like 3 straight miles.
Oh, that would send me. I had a situation. So there's nothing more I hate than vape gets blown in my face, or like cigarette. Like if you're smoking a cigarette, don't stand next to me. I hate that smell. And I was with a friend and he was hitting a vape and I counted to 3. And I was like, okay, if it goes to 4, we say something. And then he like stopped hitting the vape and then he pulled out some cigs. And he goes, "Light one." I go, "I tell you this, I love you, Scotty, like a brother. But if you like that cig, a fist is coming to your throat so quickly. You better go over there. I hate that smell."
All right, going back to
Yeah,
some
back
of these
on
things
track.
here. Okay, yeah, I know. Sorry, we do this all the time. But so here's the deal for me. Number one is I understand the Rams share the city and the stadium with the Chargers. At the same time, I can look at that Rams organization and I'm really impressed. Sometimes you sit there and go, man, that's a well-run organization. They are. Les Snead and Sean McVay do a fantastic job. They're veterans in the right spot. It's not easy cutting a guy like Cooper Kupp. And you got rid of Cooper Kupp, who's now going to Seattle. But they obviously it's business all the time, to the point where Matthew Stafford's wife does that crazy podcast and almost gets him thrown right off the team. So the Rams are all business. They've proven they've won a Super Bowl. At the same time, they obviously have an owner as a ton of dough. They're building this whole Ram City thing. I don't know if you saw it from where you are, but the Rams do a lot of things right. Sometimes you tip your hat and go, that's a well-run organization. They are. The Commanders a few years ago were the biggest joke organization going. Now you have new ownership in. They got approved for a brand new stadium. I think Jaden Daniels is ridiculously good. I told you he's the only guy, and we don't root for injuries. The only time in my life where I've watched a sporting event and said, man, I hope he's injured enough where he doesn't come back is when he was quarterback at LSU and they're playing Alabama. I'm like, Alabama's not going to win. And then when Jaden Daniels got hurt in the third quarter and he didn't come back, Alabama won. And I was like, thank goodness. Jaden Daniels is the real deal. So I bring it up because you're in Washington, D.C. right now. And when I was a kid growing up, they always used to talk about RFK Stadium and how you could not get a ticket to a Redskins game. At the time, they're called Redskins. I understand what I just said. Okay. Anyone who freaks out right now, I said the wrong word. Is even senators couldn't get into games. Like you couldn't pull tickets. And then it became a deal where you could get tickets as easy as can be. People didn't want to go to the games. It was run terribly. And now the Commanders are a team people are talking about. You being in Washington, D.C. right now, is that the number one team in the city that people talk about all the time?
So it's tough. I think the wave of Alex Ovechkin kind of hurt that, right? It's just an insane hockey player. He breaks Wayne Gretzky's record this past year in goals. Very likable, easy to market, very involved in the city, very kind to media members, does every interview that he can. Very fun in front of the camera, just great guy. So that's kind of taken over. They're on a playoff one right now. I don't think they'll win, but they are in this run. So that is taken over. But the wave of excitement that has happened when Washington kind of went on their run this past season, the Hail Mary, it's changed. Like the atmosphere has really, really changed. When I got here, a friend of the program, Ryan Horvath, and even some friends I had here going, yeah, it's a sports dying city. Like they just don't care. The Wizards suck. Before this year, the Capitals were honestly on the downhill. Commanders have been the embarrassment. Dan Snyder's, burned every bridge in the city. Then, everything's changed. And now just it feels more alive. And then coming back to the city, it means a lot. You don't have to go to a death trap of a stadium that's a pain to get to. I'm not going to lie, though. When they build, the RFK and it comes back and everything, Dave, it is going to be the worst traffic you'll ever see in your life. Like if you're going to go to a game and you're not from DC, find a way to walk. I don't care if it's 800 miles. I will walk 500 miles. Yeah, you should. That day you should, because it's going to be a freaking nightmare. But no, people should be excited, man. They're going to be. It's a bright future, and futures, it's just going to be fun stuff. But I think they're going to have a downfall this year. They're going to come back from heaven. Come back to purgatory. But Dave, I laughed at this when I saw it. When I heard about it and I watched the clip and thought this is just the most our guy Jim Harbaugh thing ever, of him saying he was like laying in bed that night just with his wife, probably with a glass of milk to the left of his bed, and he just goes, "I have to get Herbert in the Hall of Fame." Like that's before I go to bed, I think about you and Josh, and I like spring up in the bed and I go, I have to title the episode. That's we're one and the same.
All right, so it's an interesting comment that he made, right? I mean, it's so Harbaugh, right, to say something like that. Like that's what all of a sudden consumes him. I have to get Justin in the Hall of Fame. Now Justin has to be thinking it would have been nice if you thought that before the draft. Like maybe you could have helped me a little bit more. It would have been nice if you thought that maybe during free agency, maybe a little bit more. But look, man, it's one thing for him to say it, and it's not like he doesn't have the track record of being a winning coach, because he does. But imagine if that was Brandon Staley that said that. We'd all be laughing our asses off right now. Going, are you effing kidding me? Going, dude, you have no credibility to even say that. Like, you haven't won a playoff game. And same thing, Justin hasn't won a playoff game. And so we all love Justin Herbert here. Like, nobody loves Justin Herbert like Charger fans. We love him. But when you see rankings all the time, we was like, what do you mean he's only ranked there as a quarterback? We think he's this and that. But he hasn't, an argument to him. And he's been in the league a while. He hasn't had the weapons that some of the other elite quarterbacks do. And so it becomes a little bit frustrating. Now, I love that Jim says that. I'm sure Justin loves that too. But, man, he's not close to the Hall of Fame right now. He's not even close to being a Hall of Fame quarterback for the fact you don't win in the postseason. And that's always what your legacy is based on, is what you did in the postseason in every sport. Were you a winner or not a winner?
That's the hardest part, right? Comparing it to another sport, look at James Harden.
Yeah.
Won an MVP before. Hell of a player. Really helped the Rockets change the trajectory of their organization. But what do you always think about when you think about James Harden? Game 7.
Choke in the playoffs.
Choke in the playoffs. That's all you think about. And you go like Justin Herbert, you think there's a lot of records that he has, right? Most passing yards to the first 5 seasons. Holds the record for most passing yards in a player's first 3 seasons. Most passing touchdowns and completions in a season by a rookie. Fastest player ever to get to 1,700 completions. So there's a long list of accolades that he has, but you mentioned it. You can say everything you want. What will people say? That Texans game, how good did he look? That Jaguars game, he couldn't beat Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence might be out of Jacksonville after this year. Trevor Lawrence might be benched this year. There's a universe where that happens, even though that receiving core is insanely talented. That can happen. Herbert has to kind of take that next step, and Harbaugh has to help him do that. So my question to you, Dave, is, and you wrote this, and I have actually, I didn't spring up from the middle of the night and, scream about it, but I have been thinking about it for a little bit. Does that mean he has to win multiple Super Bowls to be in the Hall of Fame? What will it take for him to get there?
Yeah, the number's usually 2. If you don't win 2, you're Trent Dilfer, right? You got to win 2. I mean, there are guys who have won 2 that aren't in, like Jim Plunkett, not in. I mean, there are guys who have won 2 that aren't in, but, I don't want to say Dan Marino's James Harden. I think James Harden's interesting, because if James Harden had 2 or 3 NBA titles, you'd go, this guy might be in the top 10 of greatest NBA players of all time. But instead, he disgusts you when you look at him. You look at him as an eye guy that's concerned about his numbers during the regular season, that when you need him most, he disappears. But when you sit there and you haven't had a win in even just a playoff game, it's hard to make an argument for Justin Herbert. That being said, when you're seeing rankings for quarterbacks, and we had this big conversation on the show about a month ago and people lost their minds, Josh and I both put Jalen Hurts over Justin Herbert. Now, we look at the quarterback rankings by national guys, they put Justin Herbert ahead of Jalen. We love seeing our guy first. When we see Phillip Rivers, who we all love Phillip Rivers, and we wonder, will he get in the Hall of Fame? He didn't make it to a Super Bowl. He didn't win a Super Bowl. And you're saying, well, hopefully, the Chargers are represented one day in Canton, Ohio by Phillip Rivers because everybody loved him. Justin Herbert, people don't have negative things to say about him, but at the same time, dude, when the closer you get to 30, the more they're going to sit there and scratch their head and go on, what's the deal with this guy?
Yeah.
What's the deal with this guy? And so he's not. One thing about Rivers too, Rivers never missed games. Herbert has shown that he does get injured and he does miss time. That's another thing that I think people hold that against you.
He has, and I still think that his ability to overcome that is fascinating to me. Like, I'll never forget, I believe it was, I think 2 to 3 years ago now, in that Chiefs game when it looks like he can't even throw it 2 yards.
Yeah.
And then the next play, he just does like a 40-yard dot. I'm like, how did someone spit an arrow dot and it was tore it all in your neck? Like, how did you just go from feeling the worst man in the world to feeling nothing? It was insane. Yeah. But no, I think for Herbert to make it, and again, maybe I'm thinking too deep into this, but I don't know if he has to win multiple Super Bowls, Dave. I think you have to get one, and you need a couple MVPs. Because look at a guy like Peyton Manning, right? Peyton Manning, before 06, that was the thing. He can't beat Brady. He can't, when the time matters, boy, he can't get it done. Then he gets it done. He wins. He goes to the Super Bowl, loses. So that's 2 Super Bowl appearances. Denver, he has the MVP year. They lose. They get rocked. And then he has where he came and put on his shoulder pads. Brock Osweiler plays over him, and then they hit the playoffs. They go back to him. Defense won that championship, won the Super Bowl for him. He has 2. He's going to get in. Eli Manning's going to get in with his 2, even though outside those years, it was like coin flip if he knew which team he was on. I think Herbert just has to get to 1, and then we need more of these MVP type of level of accolades for him to kind of get there. Because besides his first couple of seasons, we have seen a dip in his numbers, and maybe that is because of the playing style that, and the weaponry he has around him. But, Dave, we mentioned it. We need him to kind of have that Josh Allen ability of no matter what point at in this game or what's going on, you're in the game because I'm in the freaking game. And I don't know if he has that kind of mentality or that kind of, I hate using the word aura, but the aura around him yet. And if he can get to that and be in the MVP level conversation all season long, that's how he kind of gets there. Plus a Harbaugh getting into a Super Bowl, which I think is going to be really, really big.
Angie made the comment that Jacksonville loss wasn't his fault. It wasn't, but as Angie, and you think about NFL teams, the first thing you think about is the quarterback. The quarterback is the face of the franchise. Like, you literally could take the quarterback's picture and put it on the side of the helmet. That's how people think of teams. And even though it wasn't his fault, they lost that game to Jacksonville, and the defense couldn't stop even one drive that Jacksonville had, not only the last drive of the first half, but every drive of the second half. It will always come back to who was the quarterback of that team. You have a big lead. How do you not outscore them? Even if they're scoring, how come you aren't outscoring? And whether you put that as the offensive coordinator, whether you put that on Staley for being too conservative in the second half of trying not to lose instead of playing to win, there are a million things you can think about in that game. Unfortunately, Justin Herbert is the guy that gets blamed for stuff like that. And that's the way it will be until he wins a playoff game. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. Okay, so obviously you need to look at Jim Harbaugh, and he's a huge Justin Herbert fan. Here's the question for you. This came out, Tyreek Hill listed the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Did you see this list?
No, he did.
Okay.
Was Tyreek this before or after he? Never mind.
This So here, I'm going to read the list to you, okay? Tyreek Hill's list of top 5 quarterbacks. He did Patrick Mahomes. He did Josh Allen. He did Joe Burrow. He did Baker Mayfield. And he did Lamar, okay? Lamar Jackson. Those are his top 5. All decent. Maybe Mayfield will surprise some people, but he did those 5 guys. Now, who's missing off his top 5?
I mean, you got Hurts is missing.
Okay. How about Tua?
So
his guy. Now look. Now here's the deal for me. And this is the most Tyreek Hill thing going, in my opinion, okay? I don't care if Uncle Rico is your quarterback. Dude, if he's the quarterback, he's in the list, dude. You got to put him in the list. Whether you believe it or not, you have to let him know he's your guy because he's your only option. None of those guys he listed are going to be playing with Tyreek Hill this year. So for him to sit there and not list his guy, to me, I think is a big deal. And to go, it is the most Tyreek Hill selfish thing to do, bad team chemistry thing to do. To go, not only do you list, Mahomes, who used to play with, no one's going to argue Mahomes. I got it. But at the same time, how do you not put your guy in there, no matter who it is, knowing it depends on Tua getting you the ball?
It's like the Cam Ward when he was doing like his Twitch streams and someone like asked him, they're like, who are the best receivers in the NFL? And he was like AJ Brown, Calvin Ridley. Like he threw in Titans guys. It's like obviously, he doesn't mean that, but like your point, you got to back your guys.
I agree.
And you got to give them love, and you got to like hype them up. Even if you don't believe in it, everyone in the world knows it. You still got to, play the game a little bit and go, you know what? I'll take my 11 guys over your 11 any day of the week.
And you got to. You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. You literally don't have a choice. And I honestly, Dave, I don't think people would freak out that much about it if he didn't say Baker Mayfield. The Baker Mayfield in there. Baker's great. I love Baker. I think he's a solid quarterback. But to throw him in there with those guys, it's like, whoa. All right.
Baker's the only quarterback from the NFC that he put in that list, by the way. All the other guys are AFC guys.
Well, to his point, it's, besides Hurts, you can make an argument and go, all right, look what's around him. Goff, you can be like, look what's around him. Love took some dips. And then people, love hate Dak.
Yeah.
So I don't blame that, but
no, I'm just saying again, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is, he's your guy. Les said on there when he got to Miami, he said Tua is better than Mahomes. Now that was crazy talk. Okay. One thing I always remember about Tua as well, when Tua got to Miami, if you look at the C that's always on the jersey, the captain, is named every year. Every team has their quarterback named as a captain, not Tua. When Tua's in Miami, he was the only quarterback I've ever seen who the players did not vote to give him a C. That's really unusual. I've never seen that before.
I'm trying to think of other teams that have had that. We're missing one. I want to say
without a C?
Yeah, who doesn't have a C? I think
I've never seen it. Crazy.
Caleb. I don't think Caleb was a C.
Caleb didn't have a C on the Bears last year?
No, there's someone else we're missing that didn't. Fields didn't have a C. I'm pretty sure.
You got to look that up.
I'll look that up.
I'm curious to know. Anyway, I just thought that was fascinating. Miami has a bunch of problems. They always do. But again, it's one of those things where they have problems, and I'm glad it's not the Chargers. But first of all, Jim Harbaugh would have never let that happen. He understands the position. He would never let that happen at all, that your quarterback doesn't have a C on his chest, And so it's kind of interesting. Again, if I'm Tua, dude, I look into that stuff. That's the kind of stuff right there where when I'm doing my reads, dude, Tua's not my first option the rest of the year.
Yeah. There's
an FU. And I know he's super religious, but there's a big FU in there.
I was wrong, by the way. Fields was a captain. There's a quarterback that wasn't, because I remember there's a big stink about it. I'll look it up after. I can't freaking remember on top of my head.
It's all right.
But that first training camp, that first pass, there's going to be a little extra heat on it.
Yeah.
That's going to be right at the midsection, and it's going to go right through your hands. And I'm like, oh, that's my bad. My bad, Hill.
Oh, my
gosh.
The next one. All right. Some other NFL news in there, all right? I find this fascinating because I always say I'm a numbers guy. Abdul Carter, all right, 3rd overall pick in the draft from Penn State by the Giants. His first move was to ask Lawrence Taylor for number 56, which is insane. All right. Lawrence Taylor, arguably the greatest Giant of all time. I know he was before your time, Mario, but for anyone who's my age, will tell you Lawrence Taylor, without a doubt, is first team all defense. One of the best players we've ever seen. And he was a nut. All right. I mean, it looked like he didn't lift. He could do anything he wanted. I mean, there's the story of him driving by the Meadowlands on a Monday night, seeing the lights on and going, I wonder what's happening there. And sure enough, the Giants were playing. Like he didn't even know there was a game going on and decided to pull in the parking lot and play.
Wasn't there one where he was like, he didn't even know who the Raiders were? He was like, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I remember there's some story where he's like, I didn't know Raiders were a team.
He was such a freak. So good North Carolina guy, by the way.
Yeah.
But he was such a freak athlete and so good. You hear quarterbacks say all the time. He's the first guy I ever heard a quarterback ever say, every time you walk to the line, because this is back in the day before people went shotgun, you look for number 56. Where is he? I got to know where 56 is. And Abdul Carter has some balls, man, to say, dude, can I have your number? Okay, so Lawrence Taylor goes, dude, create your own legacy. Write your own story. He wasn't a big jerk about it. He just was like, dude, do it on your own. And the next guy he goes to is Phil Simms. Also has his number 11 retired. And Phil Simms is like, no, you're not going to unretire my number. First, Phil Simms said, do whatever you want. I don't care. And then he thought about it and said, no, I'm not giving you a number 11. And it's so funny to me that he goes after those guys. It would be like being drafted by the San Francisco Giants and asking for Willie Mays' 24. It just seems bizarre to sit there and do that. You draw so much attention to yourself for not respecting the organization and the players that are there before you. It's nuts to me. I don't understand it. Imagine if Hampton just said right now as a Charger, hey, I'm going to call LT and I'm going to ask for 21. As Charger fans, we'd be pissed.
If I don't get it, I want 17.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where we're at as fans of any organization, any team, to go, no, dude, that's we fall in love with players too. It's disrespectful as can be. I just find it fascinating that the two numbers he asked for might be the two most famous Giants.
The part that made me laugh is I was like, it would literally be, imagine if you're drafted by like the Chicago Bulls, you're like, I want 23. They're like, no, you're not going to get it. And you're like, fine, I'll settle for 33.
Yeah.
You're like, still no. And I understand Carter, like, he's part of the Penn State 11 thing where, like, if
Michael
you're the
Parsons.
and all that crap. But it's like, someone tell him, hey, it's the NFL. Guys a little bit more selfish. And it's more kind of the name on the back of the jersey, not the front. So create your own crap. And by the way, you don't have like a number you always wanted to do. I don't know, like 3. 3's taken. I don't know. Like there's there's 1,000 other ones out there. So the whole thing to me is just insanely funny. And like if I am the person handling the jerseys, Dave, I would literally be like, buddy, this is not that hard of a deal. Like what are we doing here? It's like when Antonio Brown's doing thing with the helmet. It's like, come on.
But the thing is, you're talking New York, number one media market. I mean, we're trying to sell jerseys. Like, dude, pick a goddamn number. Ever the rookie already has their number. Shedeur Sanders is selling jerseys like crazy with Cleveland. Dude, we got to start selling jerseys. Pick a damn number. Like it is the most ridiculous thing going, anyway.
It's so ridiculous. And oh my gosh, I couldn't do it in a worse market than New York.
Agree.
Like, you're lucky Aaron Judge is hitting the damn ball and the Knicks just beat the Celtics, buddy, because you'd be the topic of the day for the whole 4-hour show instead of just for an hour. But still, man.
There you go. All right, got a question for you on this one here. It's about athletes and what they are off the field, okay? And so we talked about this name a lot going into the draft. It's Mike Green, linebacker, coming out going, do you take a chance on him? Okay, the Ravens did take a chance on him. Ravens are a respected organization. Ravens are the team, I think, surprised a lot of people that they did choose to get him. Again, Mike Green was accused of sexual assault in high school and again at the University of Virginia before transferring to Marshall. How important to you being on your favorite team is character over players past?
That's a great question. I think it really matters of like whose jersey you're gonna buy, right? Like if character like Deshaun Watson with everything that's happened to him, and let's say like instead of him being terrible, he ends up being really good for the Cleveland Browns. Kind of makes it more hard to cover, if you will. I think it's you cheer for your team, so you cheer for your team. But I think the line for me that I guess would be drawn would be like, I'm never gonna buy like a jersey. Like I'll never just like rep the jersey. I just don't really want that heat that like on the attention that you kind of don't want out in public. I think that's like the tougher part. But Dave, we've seen over time in sports, especially, people kind of look the other way on off the field issues. And the Ravens, they just had a very tough decision with Justin Tucker that just came out where they officially released him after everything that's going on over there.
Justin Tucker had a really bad year last year too.
He had a really bad year. But by the way, if he had a really good year, I guarantee you he's still a Raven.
If he had a typical Justin Tucker year, they aren't drafting a kicker, and he's still a Raven. I agree with you on that.
Exactly. So it's, And if Deshaun Watson contract wasn't so freaking nuts and didn't have like any loopholes in it, I guarantee you wouldn't be a Brown right now either. So it's tough, man. I think it's a kind of tough situation to handle, but you know, I'm sure you guys. I feel like this is the pre rant before the actual rant. This is the pregame of it, the warm up,
No,
appetizer.
no, I tell you what, in a perfect world, we want all of our favorite players to not get in trouble. I
Yeah,
mean, the older I get, and maybe some people are like me, where you're going, man, I just want to see them win before I die, kind of a situation or whatever it takes. And if there's a really bad guy on the team that you kind of want to, you look the other way, even though you prefer not to, if it means wins. I tell you, I'm a huge Dodger fan. I've talked about it on the show before. One thing I love about being a Dodger fan is the Dodgers are the organization that does things right, and they
except
try
for
and do the right.
gambling.
Hold on. Don't start that crap. Okay. You know more than the FBI. You know more than the FBI. So I'll say this: they're the ones that broke the color barrier. They're the ones that brought in Fernando. They're the ones that had Sandy Koufax. They're the ones that brought in the first Korean, the first Japanese player. The Dodgers try and do the right thing. When Trevor Bauer got in trouble, even though they had to pay him $100 million to do nothing, the Dodgers still got rid of Trevor Bauer. When Julio Urias, punched his girlfriend and fiance, the Dodgers still got rid of him too. So they try and do the right thing. I respect that. Now, trust me, when the Dodgers had a million injuries last year, yeah, I thought a million times, bring in Trevor Bauer. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they said we're going to do the right thing and not bring in Bauer. It's not worth it to us. We sell tickets too. And when you're talking about something like domestic assault, there are women who followed this team too, and there are men who respect women who followed this team too. So the right move is to not deal with something like that. Now, in Green's defense, the Ravens said straight out, we did our research on everything that went down, and we could not find any documentation of the accusations of what went down. And that was their argument back on why we got him. Yeah, he was accused twice. We couldn't find any documentation that showed that he was guilty of anything. And so we said we trust in our interviews that he's a guy that we're proud to have on this team wearing our uniform. Now, if, God forbid he does something again, you completely have egg on your face because he has 2 strikes on him technically. You knew.
Yeah.
You knew. And so did you put winning over, character and what your franchise is? And as an owner, I would say to my general manager, dude, you better be 100% sure this guy's not going to screw up again, because I don't want to own a team that this is what we do. Baltimore is not a big city.
No.
It's not New York. It's not Chicago. It's not LA. It's not Dallas. It's one of those where, hey, the city is all involved in being, Ravens followers and proud of what Baltimore is. And if that goes bad, it goes really bad.
I think too the risk Philly took with Jalen Carter. You know, like they grabbed him, and that there was a lot of heat surrounded about him, and so far it has worked out. Um, and you kind of have to deal with that stuff. And Ravens too. Let's kind of look at their history, whether you like it or not. Ray Lewis had an event that
Yeah.
occurred that brought a lot of unwanted publicity. You now have Justin Tucker. I would like to imagine that after both of those situations, you had the Ray Rice situation that also wasn't fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and I would like to think that after all of those, there was, they said they did their homework. I would hope that extra work would be done just to go, hey, we're kind of, you know, putting on a history here and putting on a persona, if you will. Let's make sure that we're all good here. You know, let's make sure that our character is still strong in this building and with the guys that we bring in. So for, the fans' sake, and for the city's sake, I really hope they kind of get to the other side, if you will, on this. But you don't have to worry about the Chargers doing that, and that's good.
When you look at the list of people and you go, the NFL, or they'll always put out their teams with the most arrests. And you go, man, I hope my team's not high on this list, right?
Oh yeah,
The
yeah,
Bengals for years were super high on the list.
yeah.
The Bengals were crazy. The Tennessee Titans were crazy for a while. Pac-Man Jones did terrible things, when he was in the NFL, like
Yeah.
crazy stuff. And then he was both on the Bengals and the Titans. But you sit there, and the Chargers have had their fair share of problems too. Every NFL team has. But seems like it has been cleaner in the last 20 years than it was in the 20 years before.
You're talking to a guy also. I'll expose myself. I have in my apartment, I have a Conor McGregor poster
Yeah.
up of when he won like the double
Yeah.
titles. And I just never thought anything of it. I just remember watching that fight. It was, one of the best. And someone goes, really, McGregor? And I go, you know what? You got a point. I go, but at that time it was, now that I can explain it, I was like, oh, that fight meant a lot to, like, it got me to UFC. And then slowly I was like, I'm just gonna stop talking. And I was like, but there's Michael Jordan. He was a gambler, but he didn't hit anyone. So you start like looking around your apartment trying to find someone good. And it's like, Kobe, Tiger did a lot for people. So, just try to find your way out of it. It's a picture of my niece. She's really cute. She's about 2 years old.
There you go. All right. Here's the other thing for you. Last bit of football news, and then we'll do a rant. I'm gonna bring you in on a rant too, by the way.
Ooh, I like this.
Okay, here we go. So we're talking about the NFL draft a few weeks ago, and the NFL draft, the way you see these big parties, people show up. Detroit just shelled out a few years ago. Green Bay did the best they could. Tennessee's picture of filling up Broadway was pretty cool. Well, the draft in 2026 is going to be in Pittsburgh. All right. Not a bad choice. Pittsburgh obviously has a ton of trophies and a great history in the NFL. Should be great. And Washington, D.C., we're just talking about, is in 2027, gets to host. Would you go to the NFL draft if it was in your city?
Okay, so great question. No.
I wouldn't either.
No.
I wouldn't either.
I think it's like a great, maybe a good, not great, maybe a good idea in theory, but it's just you're waiting for your team, and then you kind of miss the highlights that they play. Like, I love the highlights. Like, oh, look at this guy just rock some kid from Ball State that didn't see it coming. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of beat the living snot out of Purdue Boilermakers in week 3. I like to watch that, but I don't really care to be there.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I would go either. Like, I have my routine of I want to hear. I like to hear. I don't like going to sports bars. I'm not a big sports bar guy if my team is playing, because I want to hear what the announcers are saying about my team. Like, I like to study my team as they're playing. If it was just a casual game, let's say it's Monday Night Football, Vikings, Bears, I'm going. I have no problem being with a group of people. I don't need to hear the TV. When we did the live shows, this year, when we did the Steelers and Chargers, one of the things that kind of sucked about it was we couldn't hear what they were saying about the guys because we had to have the volume down on the TV. Otherwise, it went in the microphone.
Yeah.
But I like to study, not like I'm calling plays. I'm not doing that. I'm not that maniac that sits at home and go 3rd and 3. You got to do a play action fake and get it to the tight end. I'm not doing that. But at the same time, I like to watch and hear what they say. The draft, same thing. It's like everyone's team plays at the same time, and I want to see what they say about every person that gets picked. I just want to be able to hear. That's about it.
I do agree. I want to hear it. I want to break it down. I want to give a quick Google really quickly if I've, don't know all the information about this guy or want to be surprised. I want all of that. The sports bar, I know I said on the show, but it's a top 5 favorite feeling is when you're really confident in a team beating another team and you go to the losing team's bar and you just sit there and just when all is silent, you rise and you just,
oh my God, dude.
I relish those moments. I can't tell you, Dave,
I know,
how many. It's when the day I die and, it's looking like I could beat you to it. And just as if they ask you, say something nice, be like, I think he's in, heaven or hell, whichever we go, just at a bar betting against the opposing team. I'm smiling. I'm having a good time.
You talk a lot of trash. You tell people to suck it.
I don't talk a lot of trash, but I'll do like the classic, like if there's a pick, like, he looked open, no, he looked. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Or like, no, dude, that's not.
Just twist the knife kind of slow.
Yeah. That touchdown with 2 seconds left, that's plenty of time. Everyone's got that. Yeah, James Harden to take the last second shot. You're fine. He's done it a lot of times. I'll do that crap, which I think is more angering.
It is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing's worse than someone following up with you mad, bro. That drives me crazy. You mad, bro? I'm going to knock you out. I hate that. That drives me crazy. When I'm mad. It drives me nuts. Drives me nuts.
I hate more. I love it if we're trash talking and you're good at it. I love that. Like, that makes me less angry. But if we're trash talking and you're like so bad, like, dude, uniforms are stupid. Like, I'm like, dude, I hate you more now. You're not making this fun for me. I don't have to get creative like that. I hate that more.
All right. So, by the way, please like and subscribe to the show. We have a lot of angry people on the side today. Some of you guys came in here and just said you're going to throw gasoline all over this room. I've read every one of these comments.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't
a lot of
mind it.
heat.
I mean, I don't mind it either, but it seems like we have a lot of people who are just want to go, and so I'm here for it. I don't mind it. So I look at some people in here; they're so nice every single day that are just sitting there stuck in this. All right. So speaking of that, I was thinking the other day because these are terms that were said when I was a kid, and they're said more now. It seems like more than ever. But I was thinking about it the other day because I yelled one out at somebody, and I was like, who was the first person that said that word? You know, meaning, okay, you ever get upset with someone and you call them a mother effer?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, of course you have, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, who was the first guy to throw that out there? Because it has to stop in your tracks. Right? If someone sits there
Yeah.
and goes, "You mother effer," and you're like, "What did that guy just call me?" You know, like, hey, those are definitely fighting words. If it's the first time you ever heard it, you know,
Yeah.
like it's
That
bizarre. It's a weird thing to say when you think about it.
Yeah, and like who decided like idiot wouldn't be like that bad?
Yeah. Oh,
You
idiot's
know?
nothing. But
Idiot's nothing.
I mean, like if it's funny is do you remember the TV show? They run them late at night, black and white TV. When I was a kid, used to watch it, and believe it or not, it was way before I was born. Mario, it was the show called Leave It to Beaver. And there's a guy on the show named Eddie Haskell who just always was a kiss ass to the parents, but he was always a troublemaker.
Yeah.
Now, if one time Beaver just fired back and called Eddie a mother effer, you'd go, whoa, you know, but he was. I mean, he was the definition. Okay. At the same time, whoever came up with the term son of a bitch, like, wait, what did you call my mom? You know what I mean? It's on. I mean, it's definitely
Yeah,
on, but
yeah.
it is one of those terms that is said all the time. And you going, hey, wait a second. That guy called me a son of a bitch. I'm not sure if he insulted me or my mother. Either way, it's on. We're going. Now we got to fight.
There So funny story I have about the word bitch.
Yeah.
When I was in 5th grade, we're getting a new dog. I just learned that that can also be used for a female dog.
Yes.
So for some reason, when I was in 5th grade, I thought this was the opportunity to use that word, but in that framing. And so I in the car, it's me, my dad, and my brother Joey. And I go, all right, this seems like a good time to do this. So I go, Dad, is our next dog going to be a guy or a bitch? And before I could like even get the full thing out,
Yeah.
I already got hit. Like I got hit so hard. Like it was such a quick pop from my dad, like right on the mouth. He's what is wrong with you? I go, it means female dog. And my brother goes, are you that stupid? Are you that stupid? And it was like the worst trip to talk about you'll ever have.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Last thing I'll say is this. Mario and I were talking about it while we were a minute late. Mario brought up a really good point. You want to say what your point was? Do you remember?
Yeah. Grown men with WWE. We gotta slow it down. We gotta slow it down, man. Like there's other fighting in this world. You shouldn't be WWE, the cutoff, I think, should be 24 of big fandom. I think after 24, you kind of get away from it. If you have a kid, maybe you kind of come back to it. But you shouldn't be screaming about some guy wrestling Pat McAfee or some fat tube that's got the weirdest spray tan of all time screaming in the ring. I just don't really know what's going on.
Dude, I know guys in their late 50s who are in it like it's Super Bowl 60. Like it is. And if when you tell them, hey, you're into fake wrestling, they give you the look like they don't want to believe it's fake still. Like they don't want to say it's not, but at the same time, you can tell they're all in like it's not. Like they want to believe it's real. It is bizarre as can be. I have a friend of mine who's 59 years old who told me how excited he is for SummerSlam just yesterday. And I was like, what? I do a show with a buddy of mine, Jeff, for people who know the Dave and Jeff show. Dude, he is all into it. And he always wants to say, oh, it's because of my sons. BS, dude. It is him. It's 100% him. Like he gets the magazine delivered to his house, the fake wrestling magazine every month. It's insane.
That is my favorite comment of all time. No, my son's into it, so I care. It's like, all right, dude.
Not so
Your
much me.
Yeah, your son spent the night at Sammy's house and you still watched it.
Dude, I'd rather listen to someone tell me who they drafted in their fantasy football league than break down fake wrestling. Like, what? What are you doing? I do not give an S. And I tell you, I was telling Mario this story. I was at LAX. I was like 14 years old, and Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage were the big enemies at the time. Okay. Like that was the big thing in fake wrestling. These two guys, one guy was bad and one guy was good. And I'm walking through LAX, and those two guys were sitting next to each other in an airport, waiting to catch their flight. And they were just hanging out, shooting the S the way Mario and I are talking right now. And I was like devastated. What is going on? Like, how can this possibly be that these two guys who can't stand each other and want to go and do everything horrible to each other, all of a sudden are just hanging out like they're best of friends? And they were best of friends. And I was like, son of a gun. Everything my mom always told me about being fake. My mom used to say all the time, guys would be dead. You get in the head with that many middle chairs, you'd be dead. What's the line? The line Bobby the Brain Heenan. Here you go. He's a former wrestling promoter. Mario, his line was, I've been hit in the head so many times by folding chairs, my head smells like ass.
That's actually amazing. Dude, we would like a lot of guys I work with, they all grew up wrestling fans. And like I don't know if you let Josh and Jake watch it, but like I wasn't allowed to watch it growing up. And instead, which is till this
My
day.
kids never watched. They had no interest in it. My kids never watched.
Okay, so I had it on I think twice in my house, and I remember my mom caught me like watching it, and I'm not kidding you. She goes, "If you want to be real and want to be a big boy, you go watch UFC with your brother, but turn that crap off." And I remember like going to watch UFC, and it was Nate Diaz trying to fight the whole building, calling everyone a mother effer. And it's just like very funny. I'm like, oh, so that's like that was the okay. But someone saying damn and hitting with a metal chair fake was like the step too far.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for it.
Mike says right here, Ernie Ladd. I don't know Ernie Ladd, but he's a former Charger. He was a big wrestling guy. Yeah, true. Big cat Ernie Ladd. He's absolutely right on that whole deal. There's a comedian who had the best line going who said, talking about fake wrestling, and he goes, he goes,
I know where you're going.
Yeah. I'll be careful. I'll be careful.
Okay.
He says the loser of one of these matches should have to give the other guy oral in the ring. At least one guy's fighting for real. that was the line. And I was like, all right, at least it's somewhere it's real.
There you
All
go.
right, we'll end the show that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's.
By the way, one question too about it that I'm fascinated by like the documentaries of how screwed up it is. I find that when people are like, "Oh, he's the GOAT," I'm always like, "How are you the GOAT if it's planned?"
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's funny you say that. I think it's the most famous guy. Hey, you do have a couple super chats on here. Sorry,
we gotta get these.
So I see B Hannon right here.
We'll go in order. What's your reaction of Carter asking for LT jersey to wear? I mean, we talked about this earlier. Just craziness and just very, very funny and tough day for him. I hope he didn't listen to New York radio like at all the past couple weeks.
the LT jersey, it's one of those things that's a little tough, right? I mean, first of all, LT, you can make the argument the greatest Charger of all time, whether you want to say him or Seiya or somebody else. When you change cities, it's weird, right? Like Marshall Faulk, I'll give you an example. He's a San Diego State guy. I went to college with Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk is a Hall of Famer, one of the best Rams of all time. You can't really wear a Marshall Faulk jersey to a Rams game because the basically Rams fans, that was their down point when they moved to St. Louis. You can't wear a guy's jersey that was a stud in St. Louis, even a Kurt Warner jersey. You can't wear it, but LT, it wasn't like the Chargers. It would be like let's say Justin Herbert and the Chargers moved back to San Diego and Justin Herbert never played in San Diego. It would be tough to wear Justin Herbert jersey because that wasn't the time. Do you understand?
Oh yeah, I do kind of agree. But
LT is still part of the legacy of Charger football. For me, I don't know why I think
this is LT Lawrence Taylor.
And so well at that what was your reaction? Oh, Carter. I'm sorry, I can't see. I thought it said Charger LT. I can't see. God dang it! I don't want to put the glasses on. So here's the deal for me also, and people think I'm nuts when I say this. How I think about Charger football. One is the Chargers started in Los Angeles in 1960. They finally went home. So I'm okay with it. I don't know why I'm okay with it, but I'm 100% fine. I know Josh, who was born in San Diego. I was born in LA. Josh is 100% fine with it. Josh and my buddies who are season ticket holders for the Chargers, they get given a hard time all the time for staying loyal to this organization, saying, dude, it's what we got. This is what it is. And they make the drive to LA all the time, and they will not get rid of their season tickets, and they're all in on Charger football. It doesn't matter where they play. They're Charger fans.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I thought the same thing. Like when they were going back to LA, it made sense.
Yeah.
So
Okay, what do you got?
Sep Nozari. If I butcher your name, on me. I love Rivers, but he had a better team. No one has suffered than Herbo. Jim did not do all that he could this offseason to get him a better line. Do your job as a head coach, then start pressuring your own QB on TV. What do you think on this, Dave? Because I kind of disagree with a little bit at the end on this.
It's funny. I agree with him on the end. I think do a better job. Like, don't sit there and say he's a Hall of Famer without doing the best you could through free agency and through the draft to help him. I mean, the thing that we all think holds Herbert back is not him. We all think it's the front office that doesn't give him the weapons he deserves to succeed at his highest point. At least that's how I feel.
I just don't agree with pressuring your own QB on TV. I don't think Harbaugh pressured him. I think that was more of Harbaugh pressuring himself. Being like, I have to do it. Like, I have to do better for him. Harbaugh's not a guy that speaks to his players through the media. He just gasses them up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
All right, this last one. Pancakes, French toast, or waffles, Dave?
And man, I like them all. I don't eat any of them anymore, but I like them all. I'm gonna go pancakes.
Dude, I don't know the last time I've had French toast. It's got to be like a decade.
If I had to rank them, I'd probably put pancakes 1, French toast 2, waffles 3.
I would go waffles, pancakes, French toast. Last time I had pancakes was at Bobby and his diner over in Arlington, and I think I ate it was my cheat day, and I don't think this guy knew what the gremlin that was coming into his diner, and the looks on their faces when I took down those 8 pancakes was astonishing.
There you go. I like how Barry puts in there how he eats his French toast with strawberries and whipped cream.
Strawberry, you put berry. Wow. That's a good sugar rush right there. You should go to the gym right after that.
We used to go out with my friends and always go to House of Pancakes and get the chocolate chip pancakes at 2 a.m.
That's a good time.
That's when you could eat whatever you want and you'll be fine the next day.
That's what we would do. One of my college buddies, he lived near like a Waffle House, and we always had a thing like, just get to the Waffle House. And like, if you got to the Waffle House, everything's going to be okay. We would get there like 3 a.m. and nowhere, Indiana. And my God, you would see something.
Hey, by the way, Andrew says something interesting here. It says, I don't care where the Chargers play. I'll always be a fan. It's in my blood. It's true. It is tough because you sit there and you look at those uniforms and the logo and you're like, I'm hooked. And if you're like me and probably a million other, people, you sit there and drew the Charger logo on your paper a million times in school, right? You're drawing the lightning bolt and you're drawing the helmet and you're doing the whole thing and what your favorite face mask is. It's one of those things. When the Rams and the first team I was a fan of when I was a kid, when my dad was a Rams fan, he's like, we're Rams fans. And then we moved to Tennessee when I was like, 6 years old. He didn't care so much, but it was the Rams colors. And when the Rams moved to St. Louis, remember they changed the color yellow? They went to that Vegas gold. It was a lot easier to hate them in St. Louis because it didn't feel the same because it kind of changed the uniform. But it was that yellow mustard with the royal blue that you're like, oh shoot, those are the colors I always, had the pajamas, all that stuff when I was a little kid, and my mom would buy it for me. And then when they changed the colors, like I hated the Rams when they moved to St. Louis.
I think it's easier. I know there's a rivalry between like LA and San Diego, but I think it's easier if you stay in the same state, maybe. Like if you go to different states, it's kind of harder. You know what I mean? Like if you went from like the Colts when they went Baltimore to Indianapolis, it's like very hard to be like, oh yeah, I still.
And they should have changed. The Colts should have changed their name. I understand the Colts had a rich history at the time, but that was kind of garbage too.
Yeah, I wasn't alive, but I would have gave them a little knuckle sandwich for doing that.
that was, and they left in the middle of the night. I mean, it was the biggest puss move.
By the way, I love that story of how they moved in the middle of the night, and they still have like shout out to the random camera crew that took a video of them
Yeah,
packing up the bus. I always think like that's that's real journalism, damn it. You know,
yeah,
that's what
that
they
was
preach in
impressive.
school. Yeah.
That was impressive. Yeah, what could you do? All right, are there any more?
No, that's it.
That's it. All right, look at that. Made it an hour, Mara. You and I thought we'd do a 30-minute show without Josh.
Who'd have thought?
Made it an hour. Are we coming back on Thursday?
We're coming back on Thursday, and let me tell you something. Mighty Angie, you guys better be freaking ready because I'm gonna. I don't know. I'm gonna be a little nuts.
All right, so we'll back on Thursday, 1:00. Appreciate everyone joining us for this hour. Go ahead.
I got an idea. Maybe a little sneak peek.
Okay.
The 3 Charger players you want to play golf with
Right now or in history?
right now.
Right now. Okay, I like it.
Yeah, as we're both not golfers, but stay tuned.
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
All right,
Leave
please
comments.
like and subscribe to the show. Appreciate everyone that joined us today. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and leave your comments. I'll get to those as well. Trust me, appreciate you guys were entertaining as hell in the comments today. Good God. Again,
Yeah,
you guys
Jesus
are
criminy.
you guys my she came in and just started a whole mess. And then everyone went a little bit crazy. All
This
right.
is what happens when Josh leaves. There's war
Yeah.
in the chat.
Everything goes down in a handbasket. All right, we'll see you guys Thursday at 1:00. Again, for Mario Heron, I'm Dave Palais. We'll see you Thursday at 1. Thanks, everybody.